Welcome to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We are off and running on a Sunday morning. Happy final round of the Masters. Who will be donning a green jacket in Augusta, Georgia in, let's call it, 8 hours from now, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm Tim Murray with you for the next 3 hours here on VSiN. I'm live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas. We're going to get you all prepped for the final round of the Masters. Doesn't get much better than the pairing that we have: Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau. Rory McIlroy threw in another 66 yesterday, a 66 on Friday, a 66 on Saturday, and he now sits at 12 under par. The favorite to win the Masters for the first time in his career, but Bryson DeChambeau not too far behind. He sits at 10 under. Those two will be in the final group today as their round will start at 2:40 Eastern. A lot of golf coverage for you today. It'll start with Jeff Sealey later on here in this hour. So we'll talk to Jeff in the second hour of the program. We'll check in with Wes Reynolds as well, and we'll continue to keep you updated on the odds board and what we see out there. I know a number of us, including yours truly, have some Rory exposure. We'll see if Rory McIlroy can get it done. Also worth noting, today is the final day of the NBA regular season. We had JVT on the program yesterday, and JVT discussed the Game 7 feel that we should get this afternoon between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. We'll dive into all the scenarios, and Rick Kamla will join us later on this hour. We'll get his thoughts on the upcoming final day of the NBA season, as well as taking a look ahead to the playoffs as we're starting to see things come into shape. Eastern Conference, as we know, is all set 1 through 10. We know the matchups there. Western Conference, still a little bit murky. We'll get into the scenarios and maybe some of the opportunities that are out there from a betting standpoint. So a whole lot to get to, as well as we heard from Josh Heupel yesterday. Prior to the show yesterday, we had a little breaking news regarding Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava. He is out as the quarterback of Tennessee. He will be hitting the transfer portal officially later this week, and we'll hear from Josh Heupel. We will also get into my top 10 quarterbacks returning in college football this year. It is a fun exercise. I'll do this. If you're a college football nut like I am, or just a casual fan, jot down your top 10, because it is not as easy as you would think, because there are a lot of uncertain aspects to this upcoming college football season, which I think makes it pretty darn intriguing. And who knows where a couple pieces could potentially move later on this week when the portal reopen. So a busy Sunday for you ahead. Of course, a full slate of baseball as well. We'll recap what unfolded last night. Great job, by the way, by Reed Kuhn, who joined the program yesterday to help us preview UFC 314. Both of the favorites in both the main and co-main taking care of business. So we'll get to that in the second hour of the program. But let's do what we do every single VSiN Weekend Morning Line. Let's get you ready for another busy day. Let's set the scene.
Let's dive into the biggest games of the day.
Yes, indeed. And it is, as you all know, the final round of the Masters. And once again, your final group, Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau. 2:40 Eastern is when their round will start. The final round down there in Augusta, Georgia. Rory, 12 under par, and we talked about some of the similarities yesterday of the 2005 Tiger Woods performance when he came back to win the Masters and the 2025 performance of Rory McIlroy. Well, now we have to bring up a little bit something that might not make you feel all that great inside regarding Rory McIlroy and being 12 under heading into the final round of the Masters. Let's hear from Rory McIlroy as he gets ready for the final round of the Masters as the leader.
Yeah, I think I still have to remind myself that there's a long way to go. Just like I said yesterday, 18 holes. I just as much as anyone else know what can happen on the final day here. So, I've got a lot of experience. I came in here talking about being the most complete version of myself as a golfer, and I just have to keep reminding myself of that and remind myself that no matter what situation or scenario I find myself in tomorrow, I'll be able to handle it.
Back in 2011, Rory McIlroy had a 4-shot lead in the Masters. He was 12 under par. He had a 65 on Thursday, a 69 on Friday, and a 70 on Sunday. And then that final round 14 years ago was an absolute disaster, as he had on the 10th a triple bogey and then a 4-putt double bogey on 12. He ended up with an 80 back in 2011. Charles Schwartzel would go on to win the Masters in 2011. Someone yesterday asked Rory McIlroy about 2011 and how he will spend Saturday night and what he did in 2011. He said, quote, "That was 14 years ago. I have no idea. Again, I'm glad I have a short memory." He did say this Saturday he'll try to make it through season 3, episode 2 of Bridgerton. So there you go. That's what Rory McIlroy was looking to do last night. Hopefully we do not have a repeat of what we saw in 2011. At least I hope that is the case. Maybe you have some Bryson DeChambeau exposure. You're hoping that there is an implosion, or Corey Connors, whoever it may be. Speaking of Bryson, he was phenomenal yesterday. He was at one point back 5 strokes after Rory's eagle on 15, but Bryson kept coming and coming and coming, wrapped up his round with 3 birdies. Bryson DeChambeau heads into the final round just 2 strokes back of Rory McIlroy.
I think it's fun feeling like you have to hit every single shot to the best of your ability, and you can't let off the gas pedal. You just got to focus and play the absolute best golf you possibly can. When you're leading, it's a little different. I've had those times as well, and you attack that a little differently. But for me, be chasing tomorrow, it'll be a fun test.
Bryson DeChambeau, you can get some plus money on Bryson right now, plus 240 at DraftKings Sportsbook, right over our shoulder, plus 247. If you do have some Rory exposure, it is always worth to take a look at the plus money that is on the no. Circa has that no option available right now. Circa a plus 165 on the no on Rory McIlroy to win the Masters. So Bryson DeChambeau plus 240 at DraftKings, plus 247 here at Circa. And as you see on this screen right here, that number has trickled down just a little bit. Corey Connors, that long shot at 18-1, and Scotty Scheffler now out to 40-1 to win the Masters. So the round will start at 2:40 Eastern this afternoon. Bryson and Rory McIlroy anticipating a pretty solid crowd there down in Augusta.
It's a pleasure to play in front of them and to have that atmosphere and to have that support. And tomorrow when that final group's going to be it's going to be a little rowdy and a little loud. And I'm just going to have to settle in and really try to keep myself in my own little bubble and keep my head down and sort of approach tomorrow with the same attitude that I've tried to approach the last 3 days with.
You think about Thursday, and I opened up the show on Thursday night a little hot and bothered after what we saw on 15 and 17 unfold there from Rory. The double on 15, the double on 17, really just the poor decision-making on 15. That all being said, where are we right now if 15 and 17 don't happen? If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, the world would be a better place. So I guess we can't think of it in that way. But going back to Bryson real quickly, Justin Ray does a great job. Always love his insight there. If Bryson were to come back and win today, just 2 strokes back of Rory, he would be the first reigning U.S. Open champ to win the Masters since Tiger Woods in 2001. And he would become the 4th all-time to win the U.S. Amateur, U.S. Open, and the Masters, joining a pretty neat fraternity of Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Arnold Palmer. So 2:40 today, Masters final round, final pairing. Of course, the final round will get going here in just a little bit. Jeff Sealey later on this hour on the final round. Wes Reynolds in hour number 2. Also today, ladies and gentlemen, the final day of the NBA regular season. A lot of scenarios abound. Things have cleared up just a little bit. As we know, 1 through 10 in the Eastern Conference, that is all set. We do have some series prices. We can dive into those with Rick Kamla, as we know that the 3 versus 6 will be the New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. We know the 4 versus 5 will be the Indiana Pacers versus the Milwaukee Bucks. We know everything for the Eastern Conference. The Western Conference, still a little bit murky. 1, 2, and 3 is all set, ladies and gentlemen. As we know, it will be Oklahoma City the 1, Houston the 2, and the Los Angeles Lakers the 3. This is where it gets a little fascinating for today. The Denver Nuggets, with a win today, would lock up the 4 seed. So Denver taking on the Houston Rockets on the road at Houston, and they're laying 9 here. Is that a little bit too inflated? Because Houston, remember, they rested all their starters in their game on Friday night against the Los Angeles Lakers as the Lakers wrapped up the number 3 seed. So do we see some of the Houston starters here? That is up there to be questioned. But the one that's most fascinating is the 5, 6, and 7 scenario. If chalk holds today, it would be Denver the 4, Minnesota the 5. Minnesota, once again, a massive favorite today as they're a 24-point favorite against Utah. Golden State would be the 6 and the Clippers would be the 7. Golden State right now at home is now out to a 4.5-point favorite against the Los Angeles Clippers. But if the Clippers do get the win today, they could get as high as the 4 seed if Denver were to trip against the Houston Rockets. So a lot of scenarios abound from the NBA. We'll get into those with Rick Kamla later on in this hour. We're up and running. It is the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. And before we take 2 steps forward, let's take a step back. About last night, we'll do that next right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
We keep it rolling here on a glorious Sunday. Hopefully it will be a lovely day down there in Augusta, Georgia, as Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau, they'll go head-to-head. Will we see anyone come from a little bit further back in the pack? Could we see a Corey Connors at 18-1? Is Scotty lurking out there at 40-1? We'll talk to Jeff Sealey coming up in less than 15 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on the final round down there at Augusta. Will Rory McIlroy finally wrap up the career Grand Slam, or could we see more heartbreak from Rory? You think back to the U.S. Open just a year ago. Also, you think back to 14 years ago, 12 under par, heading into the final round, and an absolute implosion, shooting an 80 in 2011. It was funny. I was watching the final round, the third round yesterday with my wife, and she looked at me, not knowing anything about the history of Rory McIlroy. She said, well, he's in pretty good shape to at least finish top 5 or top 10. I said, well, you would think, but in 2011, not the case. So that would be a pretty brutal beat for anyone like me who has a top 10 on Rory, a top 5 on Rory. Once again, you do have the opportunity, if you have a Rory ticket, a place like Circa offers the no price at plus money, plus 165. I'll talk to Jeff about that and see what he thinks, if this is the spot to get off of Rory McIlroy or continue to back Rory McIlroy here. But Bryson DeChambeau, quote from yesterday at his post-round presser, he said, quote, "I'm still here. I'm not going to back down." And that was in regards to Rory McIlroy, eagle on 15, place goes nuts. He, at that point, had a 5-stroke lead over Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson, birdie 15, birdie 16, wrapped up that round with 3 straight birdies. So Bryson DeChambeau, heck of a finish yesterday. Birdie on 15, birdie on 16, and then the birdie to close out the round on 18. So Bryson yesterday, a 69. Rory shot a 66. And as we like to do before we jump all the way into Sunday, we take a step back and just recap what unfolded yesterday across the sports landscape. So let's hear from Trevor Immelman, who is the analyst for CBS Sports, regarding the 66 from Rory yesterday and what he expects today from Mr. McIlroy.
He was 7 back after round 1. immediately had a short night because he had to play early the next morning and came back with such brilliant golf over the last 2 days. It really has been impressive. And it's not just him. Look, the patrons here, they treat everybody the same and they hand out love equally. But you got to think to yourself, with DeChambeau, with McIlroy, in my opinion, the two most popular players in the game right now, we are just set up for a spectacular Sunday.
No doubt. And I think all of us are pretty fired up to see this final pairing. 2:40 Eastern is once again when they will hit the course today. Speaking of which, the course is already being occupied as the final round of the Masters is underway with, I believe, Justin Thomas starting his round. So you're starting to see some folks out there. Hideki Matsuyama out there. Justin Thomas yesterday. Not a great third round for old JT as he shot a 76. So he shot 4 over par. So on the course right now, Akshay Bhatia, Minwoo Lee, and Hideki Matsuyama all out there right now finishing up their rounds of the Masters. And then later on today, we will, of course, see Corey Connors, Ludwig Ohlberg, Justin Rose, and you could sense it coming. Leader after the first round for the 5th time in his career, leader after the second round, an 8 under 71 on Friday, and you wondered, would that poor round come? Unfortunately, for those who had Justin Rose tickets, I know Matt Humans had one. I know JVT had a Justin Rose ticket. Unfortunately, as Humans kind of alluded to yesterday on the show, he felt like it was coming, and ultimately it did, as Justin Rose, 5 bogeys yesterday and shot a 75. So Justin Rose enters today tied for 6th. He is 5 under par, and hopefully for the sake of folks who have some Justin Rose tickets that he's able to hang on there in the top 10. But Justin Rose, heck of a round, first 2 rounds, and he now sits at 5 under par. Same spot as Scotty Scheffler. Scotty Scheffler also 5 under par. Yesterday, he shot a 72. So Scotty yesterday, couple of bogeys, couple of birdies, a 72 yesterday for Scotty Scheffler. But all eyes on Rory and Bryson, and you heard from Trevor Immelman, 2 of the most popular players out there. You heard some massive roars yesterday from Rory, his 2 eagles, but Bryson DeChambeau, as you saw last year at the U.S. Open, and have you seen a little bit down there in Augusta, there's a lot of love out there for Bryson. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see these 2 go head-to-head in the final round here of the Masters. Corey Connors, he's lurking back. He's at 8 under par. Solid day yesterday for Corey Connors as he shot a 70, and he had birdie on 8, 9, and 10. Wrapped up the round with all par from 11 on. So a 70 yesterday for Corey Connors, and he sits at 8 under. He was lurking there, only a stroke behind Rory for a good chunk of the day, but ultimately Rory, the eagle on 15. Boy, that was impressive. So the start to the round yesterday for Rory with a birdie, eagle, birdie, then another birdie on 5, couple of bogeys, 1 at 8, 1 at 10, but he responded with that birdie on 13 and then the eagle on 15, which it's kind of funny to think where we are for Rory McIlroy. On Thursday, 15 was the disaster, right? He was 4 under going to 15, ends up putting it in the drink, and then yesterday, a beautifully played 15th hole as he ends up with an eagle. So can't wait for the Masters final round today. Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau. We'll have Jeff Sealey on here in less than 10 minutes and Wes Reynolds in hour number 2. Also last night, and as I mentioned in the Open, shouts to Reed Kuhn as he was on the program yesterday at Fightnomics as he helped us handicap UFC 314. A little chalky, felt a bit like the NCAA tournament late last night down there in Miami, but Alexander Volkanovski, he wins by decision, so it goes the distance, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Reed said there was a little bit of a correlation if you like Volkanovski to look at the over. So the over cashes over 3.5 rounds, it goes to the cards, but Volkanovski is your winner at minus 165. And then, I actually took a little Patty Pimlet yesterday as well, because this was a spot where I thought Reed did a great job handicapping this fight, where you look at Patty, you looked at Michael Chandler. Chandler's been around a time or two, and he felt like the younger guy was going to ultimately take care of business, and he did. So was able to cash that ticket. So great job yesterday by Reed Kuhn. So the main event and co-main go to the favorites. Also, Gene Silva, he wins as well. So a lot of chalk late in UFC last night there. So good job by Reed Kuhn. Appreciate him with some winners yesterday here on the program. Something that we are going to discuss as the show goes on. We had the breaking news yesterday of Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback of Tennessee. He and Tennessee were going to part ways. We got that report from Pete Thamel prior to the show yesterday, and then Tennessee had their spring game, and Josh Heupel, after the game, was asked to discuss the Nico Iamaleava situation. This is what the head coach of Tennessee had to say about his now former quarterback, Nico Iamaleava.
Today's landscape of college football is different than what it has been. It's unfortunate, just the situation and where we're at with Nico. I want to thank him for everything that he's done since he's gotten here. That's as a recruit to who he was as a player and how he competed inside of the building. And so a great appreciation for that side of it. Obviously, we're moving forward as a program without him. I said it to the guys today. There's no one that's bigger than the Power T, and that includes me.
There you go. I mean, that's where we are now in college football, and I know there's been a lot of takes been thrown out there. The way I look at it is kind of what Josh Heupel said. This is a situation where they wanted more money, reportedly, Nico and his camp, and Tennessee said, we're good. We'll move on from you. So I think there are a couple schools. I thought USC could be a possibility. John Bryce of Football Scoop emphatically said that is not going to happen. I believe UCLA could be a possibility for Nico. I heard that maybe. Once again, this was thrown out there, so I don't know how substantial it is, but maybe North Carolina, our old colleague, Michael Lombardi, could they be kicking around on Nico? He'll find a landing spot, no doubt, but he is not going to be headed per reports to USC or obviously Tennessee. I do want to get into the top 10 quarterbacks in my eyes heading into this upcoming college football season, and if we can correlate that into some plays for the upcoming season as spring season starts to wrap up. The portal will be here later on this week. Hey, folks, if you're betting on baseball, make sure you're getting the best odds with ProfitX. ProfitX is the first peer-to-peer sports exchange in the U.S. available in 40-plus states. That means you're betting against other fans, not the sports books, giving you, on average, 10 to 20% better odds. You can even request your own odds. So download ProfitX today and use the code VSiN. That's VSIN. Jeff Sealey going to help us break down the final round of the Masters next.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
I am fired up for a loaded sports Sunday ahead, as every Sunday is. We've got a full slate of baseball, final day of the NBA regular season with some interesting scenarios abound. The biggest game, in my eyes, is the Los Angeles Clippers visiting the Golden State Warriors. Had JVT on yesterday. He likes the under in that one. I believe it opened around 222.5 as we discussed that yesterday, as there could be a real Game 7 feel in that one. If the Warriors are able to win, they would avoid the play-in. If they were to falter to the Clippers, they would head to the play-in. So a lot on the line there for that one. Rick Kamla going to join us in 15 minutes. He'll give us his thoughts on the final day of the NBA regular season and maybe some early thoughts on the playoffs as well. But as we all know, it is also the final round of the Masters, and I'm sure the folks over at CBS are pretty happy to see Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau going head-to-head down there in Augusta, Georgia. And always great to have Jeff Sealey joined the program. Of course, you know him from Follow the Money. Always love his insight when he joins the fellas before every golf tournament. And now, before we head into the Masters final round, let's bring in Jeff. And Jeff, I was talking about it briefly, and my wife, who I'll just say is doesn't know the history of golf all that much, and she looked up at the score last night as we were watching it at her house, Jeff, and she said, wow, you should be pretty good with your top 5 and top 10, at least, on Rory. I said, well, 2011 did happen. So watching Rory these last 2 days, Jeff, where are you on just Rory versus what he was in 2011? How confident are you that he's going to avoid absolute disaster like he had in 2011?
Well, it's funny, Tim. So I give Rory probably, I figured out about a 70 to 75% chance to win today, right? And it's one of these scenarios where, coming in, he had the best form of any golfer on any tour, period. I don't even think, even better than Scotty, better than anyone. I honestly don't think it was particularly close. And so, the logic would dictate, hey, look, the player who was playing the best coming into the Masters is having the best Masters. So that seems perfectly logical. But then you watch his last two holes after the end of round one, and you're like, oh boy, here we go again. This is vintage Rory. We saw kind of the end of the U.S. Open, right, when Bryson ran him down and pulled that out. So I think it's going to be really interesting TV today. And what it's going to make it more interesting, and something I've seen in the markets here over the past 90 minutes or so, Tim, is the change in the birdie markets after the pin placements came out. And so I noticed it's going to be very difficult pins today. And I've noticed a lot of the markets that were, say, over 4.5 birdies, minus 120, minus 130, have shifted to 4.5, plus money now. So the pins are going to be tough today, and it's going to be a challenge. So you really have to pay attention to that, because I think that 2 or 3 under, while I was really optimistic that there were going to be some decent numbers earlier based on traditional pins, they've changed a few up. So I think it's going to be tough sled today. It's going to be very, very interesting. So, but I think Rory's certainly more likely than not going to pull it off.
We just got a tweet from Chris on Twitter. You can always tweet me at @1TimMurray. You can tweet Jeff at CutmakerJeff, and I'm at the network at VSiN Live. And Chris just said, to your point, Jeff, how about the odds movement on hole-in-one today, now using a different pin location? It was minus 135 yesterday on the yes, and after the pins were announced today, Jeff, that has moved to 9-1. So you pointed it out. So a little bit of pin location movements, and we've seen some odds movement here this morning as we get ready for the final round. Bryson right now sitting around plus 240, plus 250, depending on where you shop. Over our shoulders here at Circa, last check is around plus 247, Jeff. What do you expect to see from Bryson? And you alluded to it at the U.S. Open. He was able to hunt down Rory. Rory had a couple of short misses from the on the greens, as we all remember, and Bryson had the incredible recovery from the sand trap there on the 18th. So what do you expect from Bryson, and would you look to bet anything on DeChambeau today at the current price?
Honestly, yeah, I think at the current price, I think there's some value there. I mean, I think that Bryson has probably a 20 to 25% chance to pull this off, and if I'm getting plus 250, plus 260, or so on, I think that's a reasonable price. So yeah, I mean, if I'm strictly, I think there's really three options here, right, Tim? It's Rory probably 70% to win, Bryson probably 25% to win, and then I think Oberg probably has 5% to win. You can find him at 40-1 or so. I think he is I don't think Corey Connors is going to get it done, period. I just don't think he has the intestinal fortitude to win a Masters on a comeback night on Sunday. So I think really it's those three guys, Oberg being the longer shot, I would look at there. So certainly I think Bryson at plus 240 or better is a decent bet. And I'm very pot committed on Oberg already, so I'll be cheering for him. And I think if anybody can make 6 or 7 or 8 birdies today, he certainly can. He's going to be pin hunting and is as dangerous as anyone in the field.
Jeff Sealey joining us here, courtesy of our Progressive guest line, getting us ready for the final round of the Masters. We'll talk to Wes Reynolds in hour 2, get his perspective as well. And it does look like, just looking over my shoulder a moment ago, looks like there's a little bit more Rory love out there, as Bryson has now moved out to plus 265 at Circa. So always look around and see what the odds are. You kind of led me into my next question, which is, everyone else, right? We know Rory and Bryson, those are the two guys we're going to focus on. You alluded to Corey Connors, who is the third shot right now at 18-1. Who else would you look at maybe to finish top 5, top 10? Ludwig Oberg, as you mentioned, he's now at minus $1.25 to finish top 5. Scotty Scheffler at minus $1.40 to finish top 5. Who do you think, Jeff, could have a good day? Maybe not to win it, but to hang out, maybe get into a top 5 here.
Yeah, two things I would say, Tim. One, before I answer that, I will say this. I think if you are going to bet Rory, the best way to bet Rory, I saw this at BetMGM. I'm sure that it's the same. You can find it comparably elsewhere. Is you can bet Rory to shoot 70 or better at even money at BetMGM. And rather than lay $2, I would prefer to bet that, because I think he's going to have to shoot a 70 or better a day in order to win. So I think that is a really good way to attack the Rory market if you do want to bet Rory. And then to answer your question, in terms of top fives at plus money, my favorite, honestly, at the price is probably Shane Lowry. You can find him around $2 to make top five. And I think he's a guy who I expect to grind it out, contend today. Again, maybe shoot 2 or 3 under. So I would say for the price, I think Shane Lowry is certainly interesting. And then Xander Schauffele's a guy whose ball striking can be as good as anybody's. He could get hot. He can put together some birdies. And if you can find him close to $3, he's a guy I might look at as well.
Jeff Sealey joining us here, getting us ready for the final round of the Masters. And I know there are a bunch of people here at the network. Humans had a 125-1. I think I know that JVT had, 110-1 on Justin Rose. And, talking to Humans yesterday, Jeff, you could sense it in his voice. He's like, yeah, it's a good ticket to have, but he didn't feel confident that it would get home. Ultimately, he had a tough day yesterday. What do you expect from Justin Rose today? Is he someone to fade in the matchup markets, or do you think he has a bit of a bounce-back final round here to wrap up what has been a pretty solid, Masters for Justin Rose?
If I were going to bet it, I'm not going to bet Tim, but if I were, I would fade Justin Rose. And I think if you look at the metrics, a lot of the early lead that he got out to was leaning very, very, very heavily on his putter. Ball striking was not good, and the putter really carried him. And anyone who knows golf betting, and certainly at this course, it's really, really really difficult to have your putter carry you through. Unless you're Jordan Spieth, it's really hard to have your putter carry you through 4 rounds at Augusta. And that's, come to fruition here with Justin Rose. So I'm not going to take either side of that. If I were, I would probably look to fade him there. Humans was texting me yesterday too. He was pretty frustrated. And I get it. I had Hideki Matsuyama, who over 2 days had the best ball striking metrics of anybody. And yesterday, completely blew up. So this is one of these courses where, every hole there's a ton of birdie opportunities out here, but every hole has real problems that you could blow up as well. So that's the beauty of Augusta National. That's why we love this tournament. And I think it's going to be really great television any way you slice it today.
All right, before we get out of here, Rory McIlroy, will he have a green jacket on his shoulders later this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm going to say that's the most likely outcome. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to be rooting for my heart tells me Oberg, my head tells me Rory, so I'm going to say yes.
Jeff, always appreciate the insight, man. I know you've got a fun day ahead of you, so enjoy it out there. You'll be on the golf course watching it, so appreciate it, sir, and best of luck with your bets.
Thanks, Tim. Take care.
There he is. Jeff Sealey, always appreciate his insight. Of course, he joins the fellas on Follow the Money each and every week. So he's got a pretty cool day ahead. So Jeff, I know he's looking forward to a fun day there at Cutmaker Jeff. We're going to talk some NBA with Rick Kamla coming up here in just a moment. But folks, just a reminder, whether you're at home or on the road or now on the go, there's more ways than ever to tune in to VSiN. So you can stream us on VSiN.com. You can use the VSiN Watch app. Check us out on YouTube TV, iHeartRadio, also SiriusXM Channel 158. The final day of the NBA regular season. Rick Kamla helps us break it down next.
Tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
We keep it rolling here on a Sunday morning. I'm Tim Murray, live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas. Last day of the regular season in the NBA. Also, final round of the Masters is underway. As always, appreciate Jeff Sealey giving us his thoughts on the final round of the Masters. And he did say if you are looking to bet someone the finished top 5, he did like Shane Lowry and the price that he has around plus $2 for Shane Lowry to finish in the top 5. And he said ultimately he does believe that it will be Rory McIlroy donning a green jacket, but the Bryson DeChambeau price at around plus 260 or so was also appealing to Jeff there. So some good thoughts there. We'll talk to Wes Reynolds in the next hour of the program as he will give us his thoughts on the final round of the Masters, as well as that round is underway, and a handful of folks already out there on the course wrapping up their round today, as a good start for Wyndham Clark, as he is 2 under through 2 holes today. So back-to-back birdies for Wyndham Clark, and I'm sure some folks out there have some top 10s, top 20s still alive there. So Wyndham Clark at 2 under. Hideki Matsuyama, after a tough one yesterday, he started the day with a birdie on 4. So we'll keep you updated on what's happening out there at the Masters. Justin Thomas, unfortunately for me, as I took a top 20 on JT, doesn't look like we will get there, as he's now 5 over, 1 over through 3 holes today. As mentioned, final day of the NBA season will be here before we know it, and the Eastern Conference is all set from a seeding standpoint. The Western Conference, a little bit more murky. To help us clear it up a little bit, my good friend Rick Kamla, who joins us right now at Rick Kamla Sports, is where you can follow him on social media, does work with Sports Ethos. He has an NBA podcast there, as well as a WNBA podcast, as they have their draft tomorrow. Rick, let's start with the game with a ton on the line. That's the Los Angeles Clippers at the Golden State Warriors. And right now, as we look at this point spread, it is currently sitting at 4.5 in favor of the Golden State Warriors. A little bit of actually movement coming in on the Clippers. Total at 220.5. How do you see this one playing out in the Bay? If Golden State wins, they avoid the play-in. If the Clippers win, they avoid the play-in. So a lot on the line today at the Chase Center.
Tim Murray, good morning, my friend. I am excited that the final day of the regular season is here. You know, I'm a hoop head. I love this sport, but I'm ready. I know a lot of the teams are ready. You know, there's been some rest, and teams kind of, you know, the OKCs, the Clevelands, they've been Boston. They've been sort of doing this little rest pattern and getting ready for the playoffs. We're all ready for the playoffs, playing tournament next week. And you're right. You know, the way it's stacked up on Friday with the 15 games, no games Saturday, 15 games today, this is the way it's stacked up has not been good news for the NBA, because you can completely go click and turn off the Eastern Conference today. The entire Eastern Conference, nobody's going to play. It is going to be the G League, the NBA G League Eastern Conference. The West is going to be fun, although there's a lot, like, you know, Minnesota's, you know, in an important game, but they're going to smash Utah, and, you know, some of that stuff. So you mentioned it, 3:30 today. We get the Warriors, we get the Clippers, which has been a historical rivalry. Tim, I'll take the Clippers plus the points, man. Yep. I think the Warriors win the game, but I think it's a coin flip. I really do. I looked at this last night, Tim, for you. I was at the Tampa Bay Blues Festival, right?
There we go.
and I'm like, I got to sit with Tim tomorrow, man. So I need to look at some stuff. So I got home, and I mean, like, I'll take the points. Like, I think the Clippers can go in there and win this game. Here's why, Tim. If this was a playoff scenario, I would be punting the LA Clippers because of James Harden. And I know he's not in, like, the number one role, right? But they still need a big game from James Harden. And usually he chokes in a playoff game, right? Especially a Game 5, Game 6, or a Game 7. We're not in the playoffs. We're not late in a playoff series. So I feel like James Harden's going to go out there and hoop today. You know, I love how Podziemski's playing for Golden State. Obviously, they've been a buzzsaw ever since Jimmy Butler got there. But I'll take the points with the LA Clippers today. They're one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. They've got one of the best core fours in the NBA with Kawhi, Powell, Harden, and Zubac, who's playing as well as just about any center in the NBA, not named Jokic right now. They've got a terrific cast of role players. Ty Lue's an incredible coach. So I'll take the Clippers plus the points today.
Rick Kamla joining us here, courtesy of our Progressive Guest Line. You mentioned it. Denver with a win. They get the 4 seed. They play the Rockets today. They're around a 9-point favorite. Curious your thoughts, because we had you on last week on VSiN Primetime talking about the decision to move on from Michael Malone, and Adelman comes in from, you know, the assistant role. He's now the interim head coach there. People out of Denver seem to be kind of happy and excited about the possibilities there. If Denver wins today, as mentioned, they get the 4. How do you look at this Denver team, Rick, heading into the postseason, if in fact they do grab that 4 seed?
I mean, I'm really jammed up on them, Tim, because I had Denver as the second best team in the Western Conference, behind Oklahoma City, regardless of record, right? Just in terms of making the finals, they've got championship DNA. But when you whack your coach with 3 games left in the regular season, I don't know, man. Like, to me, that's a cannonball to your sail. So, like, I get it. You win today, you could get the 4 spot. And it looks like Houston's going to kind of go for it a little bit here in a meaningless game. I really don't understand that. I know it's a culture thing. Ime Udoka's like, yo, we ain't giving up anything at any time. And I love Ime Udoka, right? I love Ime Udoka. But, like, I don't know. I think, and maybe, they just kind of start the starters. They dip their toe in the water and they get out of the fight. But, like, every other team is resting, like every other 1, 2, 3 team is resting their guys. So, I don't really get that, but Denver should win today. They should claim that 4 seed. But I don't know, man. I got to fade them. I do, Tim. I got to fade them. The LeBron injuries got me a little bit, weird on the Lakers now. Like, so it all comes back to OKC, man. Guys, belly up to the window with stacks of cash on OKC to win the West. And I don't care what the odds are because they are winning the West. Tim, you can go down the line. You can go team by team. Try to make a case for them to beat Oklahoma City in a 7-game series. It's just not going to happen. So, yes, Denver is dangerous, but to me, I'm going to take the us off of dangerous and just call them danger because of the coaching change. If they had Michael Malone, I'd be like, yo, I think Denver could lose a 6 or 7 game series to OKC. Now I'm not even sure they'll get to a playoff series against OKC.
Rick Kamla joining us here. Oklahoma City, it's funny, Rick, we had JVT on the show when the night after the Luka trade, and at the time, you could have got plus money on the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the West. Now sits at minus 130. Rick, before I let you run, I'm sure we'll have you back on.
I still like that.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I still like that. Minus 130. I'd bang that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hard to disagree with the way that they've been playing, and we'll see how the bracket shapes out here. But we do have a couple series that we know are locked in here on the Eastern Conference. Any interest in Pistons, Knicks, or Bucks, Pacers? Any thoughts on those 2 series, which will get underway next weekend?
Yeah, I like the Pacers. I think the Bucks are they're like a flawed, kind of incomplete team. They're good in the front court. Portis is back. You got Lopez. You got Giannis. You got Kuzma. Okay, I dig that. But in the backcourt, Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, Gary Trent Jr. Come on. That's against Indiana with all the guards they have. They've got bigs too. Last year, Indiana had Milwaukee's number. I am not buying the Milwaukee thing. It's not a Doc Rivers thing. I'm a Doc Rivers appreciator, not a hater. But I just really like Indiana. I had them as the 4th best team in the East coming in to the season. They're the 4th best team in the East right now, and I think they're going to beat Milwaukee. I know a lot of people are going to get kind of cute and, Detroit, and Detroit's going to beat New York. Beware. Detroit has never, ever, ever been to a playoff series with this group, okay? Usually that's a death knell, especially when you're playing against an experienced team like the New York Knicks. The Knicks do have home court advantage in that series. So it's probably going to go 6 or 7, Tim. I think it's going to be a good series, but be careful. Experience matters. Like, it's probably the most important factor, that and health, right? Think about Houston in the West, Tim. I got to fade them. I love them. They're my little team that could. Told you about Ime Udoka. I love the construction of the roster, but they've never been in a playoff series with this group before. And they're going to be going up against experienced, badass Western Conference playoff teams. I don't think that's going to go well. So I got to fade Detroit. I got to fade Houston. I got to go with the experience. So I'll take the Knicks.
If you do think it will go 6 or 7, as Rick alluded to, minus 115, though, on the over 5.5 games in Pistons and Knicks. Rick, always appreciate it, man. Have a great Sunday.
Tim, you too, man. Peace.
There he is, Rick Kamla, Sports Ethos. Make sure to check that out. Hey, folks, unlock your winning edge with an unbeatable offer that we are offering you here at VSiN. VSiN Pro access to everything we do through August 1st for just $59. You get a daily email recapping all the best bets from VSiN hosts. Everything you could ask for, one low price, $59. VSIN.com/subscribe.